engeziwe ukunisiza ukuba niphumelele kwizivivinyo zenu enizozibhala maduzane nje. Sinothisha abanethulela izifundo zika-Grade 12 zonke izinsuku kusukela ngoMsombuluko kuze kube yiSonto. Zithokozeleni lezi zifundo, nisithumelele imibuzo lapho nidinga khona usizo.
Greetings, Bafundi. This is Miss Iptwelezi for tourism. Today, we are continuing with our revision. We'll be looking at another topic that was done in Term 1 under Mapwork and Tour Planning. So today, we are going to look at what is important when planning a tour. So we'll deal with tour planning. So in this topic, what is important is to know what is tour planning, how do we compile a tourist profile, how does a tourist profile influence the tour plan, so also what are the benefits of a good route plan, choosing the appropriate accommodation, attraction, activities to suit the tourist needs. How do one compile a day-to-day itinerary? How can one plan an itinerary based on different scenarios? What criteria one use in order to compile a tourist budget? What are health and safety precautions that are necessary for traveling? Why is health important when traveling? Why is safety also important when traveling? The documentation that is needed for traveling. And then lastly, the custom concepts. But there are some of the concepts that one needs to understand in order to be able to answer a question in this topic. We have concepts like your tour plan, the tourist profile, route planning, itinerary. So these are some of the topics that you came across in this topic. Budget, the vaccination, the diseases like the malaria, cholera, and also bilharzia. The international driver's permit or driver's license, the passport, visa, and also customs. Let us move on. We are going to look at developing tour plans to suit the tourist profiles, available budget, and also time. You need to know what your client wants. You need to know what your clients need. So we all know that there's a difference between wants and also needs. So when you gather this information of what your client needs or want, this is referred as compiling a tourist profile. When we talk of a tourist profile, we're talking about a brief overview of the client's detail. So tourist profile will be differ as your clients are not the same. So each client will have his or her tourist profile. So this information is needed by the person who is putting together the tour for a client in order to meet the needs of the client. So that one is very, very important. So before one can go on and plan for a tourist, one, he or she needs to know what his client needs, what his client wants. So you need to compile the tourist profile. Moving on. But then, what does the tourist profile entail? Or what factors that need to be considered when putting together a tourist profile? The name of the client. It's very important that you know the name of your client, the age of the client, the occupation of your tourist interest, and also there are some other information which are very, very important, like what your client likes, what your client dislike, or do your client have special needs when traveling? What are the preferences of your clients? It can be in terms of accommodation, transport, and attractions to be visited. The budget constraints. How much does your tourist or your client have, or how much he or she is willing to spend on the trip? So that is all the information that you need to find out when compiling a tourist profile. So the most important, as I've said, the name, the age, the occupation, the client interest, and the preferences. The preferences are very important, and also the preferences will depend on the budget of the client. There are some other important information that you need to get from your client. For example, their addresses, their dates, when is she willing to travel, the contact numbers, the emergency numbers, the destination that to be visited, special interest. So as I've said, special needs. If he or she has any health problems, or does she or he have a religious restriction or requirements that you need to be aware of. So moving on, you as a travel agent or someone who is planning this tour, it is very, very important that you take certain factors into consideration when compiling a route plan. So that one is very, very important. So when you talk of a route planning, it's a direction that the person will travel during the journey. So it's the route that they will take. In other words, when we talk of route planning, it's the route the journey will take. So what I'm doing right now is what we did in grade 11. So in grade 11, we learned about the logical route planning. So we all know that when you talk of the logical route planning, it will result in a client saving a lot of money, time, and also time. Therefore, route plan is very, very essential when planning a tour. So, as I've said, it is very, very important that route planning is logical and also it is practical. It must be logical and also it must be practical. So, route planning needs to ensure that the destinations that are visited are in order and that they make sense. So that's why we say it must be logical and also it must be practical. Tourists are not required to travel backward or forward within the area. Instead, it must be logical route planning, which involves traveling in a linear or circular pattern. So, logical route planning will involve linear or circular pattern. So, let us look at the linear route planning. So, when we say it is linear, when we talk of linear, it means that the tour plan, it has different starting and different finishing point. For example, the tourists arrived here in South Africa and left South Africa using the Cape Town International Airport. So it started in Johannesburg and it ended in Cape Town. So that is linear route. Then we have the circular route. So when we talk of the circular route, it starts at the same city and also it ended in the same city. So it started in Johannesburg, and then the tour ended also in Johannesburg. So when you're planning your route, it is important that it is logical, because we know that if it's logical, it saves time and also it saves money. So under the route planning, we have two patterns. We have the linear route, and also we have the circular route. Linear route, it starts and ends at different points, whereas the circular route, it starts and ends at the same point. Moving on, as I've said, your route, it has to be logical and it must be practical. So there are some important points that need to be considered when you plan a route. So these points, they include the speed limits to be followed when traveling, possible traffic delays due to accident and poor weather conditions. Tourists has to take into consideration the check-in time. Also, your route must allow for stopover or emergencies, the fuel consumption of the vehicle, and also the availability of fuel stations along the route, the safety of the area that the route follows, infrastructure development along the route, and also most tourists will also consider whether the route is scenic or not. So these are some of the important points to consider when planning a route, because you cannot say you'll travel for 3 hours, where is 3 hours is about 100 kilometers. So there are some factors that one needs to consider when planning a route. But then, in nowadays, we all know that we rely on technology. So, in our days, we use things like the GPS, which is the Global Positioning System. So this is a tool that is used by most travelers. So it's a navigation tool. So this type of tool, it can be fitted in the car or can be used as the mobile unit. So years back, we were using our maps, but then now we are using the GPS, which is the Global Positioning System. So the rental cars, they come with it. Some are fitted with it, or you have to rent it. And also even our smartphones, they do have. But then even if you have this GPS, it is important that you do have a very good map, because with technologies, anything can happen. So it is important that you do have a very good and also reliable map. Well, with the GPS, there are some benefits. They can give you an accurate direction, and the user doesn't have to be able to read the map. It helps with the fuel economy, because you won't get lost or waste fuel while driving around. A GPS can be used off-road to help adventure travelers find their way in the remote areas and attraction. It can be used as a handheld GPS, as one on smartphone can be used to help navigate the hikers. Also, it is very effective when traveling by sea, and user doesn't have to have any landmark to help them find their way. But then there is also a bad side, the network. So if, for example, your smartphone is where there is no cell phone range, it will be very difficult for you to move around. So that is why I'm saying a good, reliable map, it's also important on top of the GPS. Moving on, we are going to look at the choice of transport, accommodation, attraction, and activities to suit the tourist needs. So it is very, very important that we choose appropriate services for our clients. So these services must be in line with the client's needs. So you do have your tourist profile. So if you have a tourist profile, it will be very easy for you to choose the activities, accommodation, attraction, transport that will suit your client. So I'm just gonna mention the few types of tourists and maybe the type of in terms of transport, accommodation, attractions, and activities that they will suit them. For example, an adventure tourist, the transport that they would like to use, it will be a 4x4 vehicle, accommodation, the game lodges, the beach, mountain, or even the forest accommodation. Mind you, these are adventure tourists, so they are adventurous. Attractions that they would like to go to, it can be natural areas with a scope for adventure activities, the berg, bush, and beach. Activities can be hiking, can be bungee jumping, fishing, white water rafting, but it must be activities that will challenge them. The shopping tourist, they will use private car or shuttle bus. They would like to be comfortable in a hotel close to shopping areas. Attraction for them, obviously, they are shopping tourists. It will be shopping malls or even the local markets. Well, activities, shopping, and also they hunt for bargains. Where there are sales, you will find them there. The health tourist, well, you cannot put a tourist who's not well in a bus or where there are many people. So obviously they will use private car. They can stay in a hotel near a health facility. Their attraction, obviously, because it will be hospital, clinic, or even spas, depending on the nature of their illness. Activities in these areas or in the attraction, they will be going under treatment. Ecotourist, yes, also a bit the same as adventures, but they lack that adrenaline rush. They will use the 4x4 vehicles and also the game drive vehicles. Accommodation that they will like, game or bush lodges or accommodation in the nature reserve. That attraction will be wildlife and also natural beauty. Activities that they will like, game viewing, bird watching, and also they will have guided walk. The cultural tourist, private car, auto, bus, township, and breakfast establishment. Bed and breakfast establishment. Also, they would like hotels that are near the cultural attraction. Attractions for them, it will be areas of cultural and historical significance. The township tours, those are the activities that they may partake in. Cultural tours, visit to the local history site. Sport recreation, team bus, budget hotel near the sporting event or stadium. Sporting event or a tournament, those are the attractions that you'll find them in. They are participant or spectators. The incentive tourist, organized tour bus, hotel, and activities that they partake in will be the one that are be organized by incentive travel company in consultation with a customer. Their activities, they'll be tailor-made by the incentive travel company. Backpacking or youth tourist, bus or regular bus service. Accommodation, backpackers or self-catering accommodation. Our attractions that they will visit various cultural and social attraction. They'll like to visit the local pubs, getting to know the local people, and also experiencing the lifestyle of the locals. So I think that one, it covers this broad topic, which is the choice of transport, accommodation, attraction, and activities to suit the tourist need. So with that topic, what is important? It's whenever you're planning a tour, go back to the tourist profile, because the tourist profile will give you the direction that you will take in order to organize correct accommodation, transport, and everything for your client. And then we're moving on. We'll be looking at compiling a day-to-day itinerary. I think we did that also in grade 11. So in grade 11, we looked at the different type of itineraries and the rules to follow when writing an itinerary. So an itinerary, this is a detailed plan for a journey, especially a list of places to visit, or it's a plan of travel. So in other words, it's a detailed plan for journey. So it is in detail of the journey. We know that we have different itineraries. There is a general itinerary, there is a personal itinerary. So we do have different itineraries. And also we also have what is important about the itinerary. But then what I'm going to look at, what to consider in order to have an appropriate itinerary. So when planning itinerary, one must consider the appropriate services that make an itinerary logical, which will be cost effective and will save clients time and also traveling time. So the following need to be considered, or the following services must be described to the client in an itinerary. So this is the information that you will find in an itinerary. For example, the choice of transport, the transport that your client is going to use, accommodation. Also, you cannot just pick any accommodation. Clients' preferences, and also the budget will also tell you what type of accommodation your client will like. Attractions, looking at the age, yes, you still go back to the tourist profile, because like a 75-year-old, you cannot tell that person or plan activities like the bungee jumping. That person will be well suited in places like the museum. So it is very, very important to go back at the tourist profile when you choosing the activities. The departure times and also the arrival times, meal stops, and inclusion. So these are some of the things that you need to consider when you write out the itinerary. Or these are some of the things that must be included in an itinerary. Also, moving on, we're looking at factors to consider when planning a tour and also drawing up an itinerary. So also it's still the same with what we just looked at. We all know that it's either you have when you're writing an itinerary, it can be a paragraph, it must be in a paragraph method or the table method. But then what is important when compiling an itinerary, the logical route planning, the proper time management. Also, any factor that may disrupt a tourist journey. For example, there must be an alternative activity for attraction that are weather dependent in case the attraction is not accessible due to poor weather conditions. So, your itinerary must have transport, accommodation, attraction, activities, well, budget. Sometimes budget, it must be included. Also, the day and times of the activities, or when are they checking in a hotel and everything. So that information is very, very important. So the itinerary must give an overall view of what the tourists will be doing on the day. Also, it must show a logical spread of activities for the day with enough time to each activity. Also, it must also provide, as I've said, budget must be included. It also must provide the tourists with information about any costs that they may have to cater for that day. So we all know that those costs may have not been included in the tour budget. So that is what is important about drawing up the tour plan. Moving on, we'll go to compiling a tour budget. So we all know that this involves some calculations. But then, because it's revision, we're just going to look at what is important when compiling a tour budget. But one has to understand what is a tour budget. When you talk of the tour budget, is an estimate of what a tour will cost, including as many services as possible, but based on how much a tourist is willing to spend. That is a tour budget. So, again, a tour budget will depend on the type of tourist, on the preferences of the tourist, on the needs of the tourist, on how much a tourist is willing to spend. It is important to have a tour budget, as a budget helps one to avoid overspending, and also it helps tourists to plan their itinerary. When we talk of a budget, it is made up of the cost of transport, any type of transport, a cost of accommodation, cost of meals, cost of entrance fees at attractions, cost of any activity that one wants to engage in, tips or gratuities, spending money, or even the emergency money. So that all of that, it has to be calculated. I think that is what is important about the budget. Transport, accommodation, meals, entrance fees, cost of any activities, tips or gratuity, spending money, and even the emergency money. Okay, now we have dealt with planning a tour. There is also another part that is very, very important when planning a tour: the health and safety of our tourists. It is very, very important, because we all know that if anything bad happens on a tourist while on a tour, well, it can be a major disaster for that area. It may lead to the tourist decline in that area. So, the health and safety of our tourists is very, very important. So when a tourist decides to travel to another place, they need to obtain relevant advice about the travel issues. These issues, they include health and safety that needs to be carried out. Also, there's another one that we're going to look at the later stage, which is the travel documentation, because all of these, when planning a tour, it's a package. So you cannot separate one from the other one. You can plan a tour and everything, but if there is no proper documentation, your client won't be able to travel. And also, if your client is visiting the high-risk areas, if your client insists he or she wants to visit that area, also, you need to give your client a brief of that area, what to expect, what are the precautions that he or needs to take. It is essential for the person or people planning the tour to provide information to the tourist. Also, it is an obligation in various countries to provide accurate information relating or regarding these travel advisory factors. So, it won't be nice if your trip is spoiled by an illness. So, for a tourist, it's essential that he or she takes a necessary health precaution before embarking on the journey. So, in recent years, we have been having numerous pandemic. Well, at the moment, we have our COVID-19. This pandemic have been spread by people crossing borders. So, it is very, very important to be in touch with the global health system to know which illnesses you will find in areas or which areas are high risk of certain diseases. So, we have a global body that is responsible for the World Health, which is WHO, or the World Health Organization. So, it is a global health organization, which is under the division of the United Nations, and it is responsible for providing information regarding the public health. The World Health Organization made a rule that all people who travel across borders, they must be in a position of a health certificate if required. If you are going to an area where there is a yellow fever, you will need to have a yellow fever health certificate. Also, it has made a rule that all people who travel across borders must visit a travel clinic to have necessary, recommended, or compulsory vaccination. So there is a difference between recommended and also compulsory vaccination. So when we talk of the compulsory vaccination, these are vaccinations that are enforced by the law, that you take them in order to prevent tourists from contracting specific disease, and they have to be received before a tourist can travel to certain areas. And the recommended vaccination, these are advisable that you take them in order to prevent a tourist from contracting a certain disease. So the recommended, a tourist can choose to take or he may not. But then the compulsory, they are enforced by the law. So if you are required to take a compulsory vaccination, you won't be able to leave a country without it. But the recommended, It is advisable. You are not compelled to take it. You are advised that it may be a good thing that you protect yourself. But the compulsory, it's a must. It is a must. You must. Like it or not, you have to take it. Also, the main aim of the WHO is to provide awareness and precaution against the travel-related diseases, and also to set the global norms and standards around the health issues. In order to know that you've been vaccinated for a certain illness, you need to have a health certificate. So when you talk of a health certificate, this is a document that is provided by a registered health specialist to indicate the necessary vaccination that you have taken before traveling. So that is a health certificate. But where can one get these vaccinations, either recommended or compulsory? And also, where can one obtain health-related information? The travel clinic. Travel clinic, this is where you can get all information related to traveling. So that is why they say it's a travel clinic. So this is a medical facility that is licensed to provide preventative medical care to travelers, unlike your normal GP. All travel-related illnesses, the information you will get from the travel clinic. Okay, moving on. We're going to look at the health precautions that traveler must take when traveling to high-risk areas. So, when we look at the precaution one must take when traveling, there are some factors that need to be considered, like the destination to be visited, the duration and the season of travel. What is the purpose? Is it important that that person travel? For example, at the moment we have the COVID-19. So when traveling, we look at it. Is it important that you travel? So the purpose of traveling will determine that you will go into that area or not. The standard of accommodation and food hygiene condition, the behavior pattern of a traveler. Also, the way a traveler behaves, it will determine if a traveler may contract a certain disease. The existing health condition of a tourist. For example, we all know that the COVID-19, if you have the underlying condition, so it is easier for you to contract that disease. Moving on, we are going to look at the certain travel-related diseases that are common in many parts of the world, and hence information about these diseases has to be widely published. So we are going to look at the three common diseases. We have your cholera, we have your malaria, you have your bilharzia. What is important as a learner? The information that you need to know about these diseases, the description of it, its symptom, treatment, and the prevention methods. So you must be able to describe the disease, what are its symptoms, the treatment, how to treat, and also how to prevent that disease. You have your cholera. We know that it is spread by eating or drinking food, or even drinking contaminated water that is contaminated by these bacteria. So we all know that cholera is a bacterial disease. We have your malaria. it is caused by a bite of an infected mosquito, not any mosquito. We do have the mosquitoes, but the infected mosquitoes. So if you were bitten by an infected mosquito that is carrying the malaria, you are most likely to have the malaria. We have your bilharzia. So this is a disease that is caused by a parasitic worm. It occurs when one's skin comes to contact with fresh contaminated water. So there are snails that carry the parasite in water. So when your skin comes into contact with fresh contaminated water, the symptoms for cholera, the severe diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration but no fever, malaria, also the flu-like symptom, bilharzia, fever, rash, cough, muscle aches that can begin 1 or 2 months after infection. Also within days of becoming infected, you may develop rash or itchy skin. Treatment for cholera, antibiotics. Treatment for malaria, anti-malaria tablet you need to take before visiting the infected area. Also the use of mosquito repellents. For bilharzia, safe and effective prescribed drug that one takes for 1 to 2 days. But then a bilharzia can become chronic. But there are ways to prevent contracting these diseases. For example, your cholera, you have to avoid consuming water and food in foreign countries where cholera is present. So if you are visiting high-risk area where they tell you that there is cholera, you need to bring your own water. Drink bottled water. When you eat fruit, they must be washed or you need to peel them. For malaria, you need to wear your lungs covered clothes. You need to sleep under the mosquito nets also. But for bilharzia, avoid swimming or wading in fresh water, but must be heated when you are in an area where there is bilharzia. When you have swim in water where you suspect there is bilharzia, you have to engage in vigorously drying yourself with a towel if you suspect that you've been infected. So if you feel that while you have swam in an area where there is bilharzia, when drying yourself, you need to rub yourself vigorously in your area where you feel that your body was submerged more in water. But then, besides these common diseases that I've just mentioned, there are some like your hepatitis A, your hepatitis B, your TB, even your HIV and AIDS. As I've said before, the behavior pattern of a tourist may determine if a tourist may contract a certain disease. For example, your HIV and AIDS. It's also important to know when traveling. So the behavior of a tourist in that area may determine if a tourist may contract the HIV or AIDS. For example, if a tourist engage in reckless activities like the needle sharing, prostitution, so a tourist may find himself or herself with these diseases because if there are some bodily fluids that have been exchanged with a person, he or she does not know his or her status, he or she is likely to contract a disease. So let us look at the general precautions that are recommended by WHO for tourists to hit. So in order to make their journey more pleasant, these include drinking bottled water, especially in the areas where water is not freely available, wearing hats where there is intense sun, using correct sunblock, researching and using the necessary preventive medication for possible illnesses. So that was the whole part. So let us look at the safety part, or let us look at the safety measures that need to be taken when traveling. So we all know that every tourist needs to feel safe when traveling in a foreign place. So this is the reason why the tourism industry have put a certain safety precaution for tourists to follow, so that it does not compromise their safety. So there are some precautions that one needs to take when a tourist is at the airport, in the car, at a hotel, after dark. There are many. So I'm just going to look at one part. For example, when a tourist is at the airport, these are some of the safety precautions that he or she needs to follow. They do not leave their luggage unattended. Insist that they have your belongings in your view at all times, especially when checking in and also checking out. Do not offer to carry luggages for or even anything for another passenger. Ensure that your bag have labels inside and out and have locks in your bag. So a tourist can even use a baggage wrapping system in a hotel. So even how nice a stranger is near you, don't be fooled by that. So if he or she asks you to take something through, do not agree. Because if you check that and then there's something wrong with it, you won't be having a chance to explain that, no, it's not mine, it's someone else's. So make sure that you don't leave your luggage unattended, and also you do not carry anything for another passenger. And as I've said before, also you can plan your tour and advise tourists on the health and safety issues. But then if they do not have correct documentation, your client won't be able to travel freely. So you are going to look at the travel documents that are essential. So meaning a person cannot travel without them. So these travel documents, they include your ID book or smart card for domestic travel, passport for international travel, visa where of the host country, where the host country requires it, health documents and relevant to host destination, and the international driver's license, which is also a choice. Passport. So there is a difference between passport and a visa. When you talk of a passport, it's a legal document that allows one to cross border of a country. So that's one part. For you to be able to cross border is to have a passport. For some countries, they will require a visa. When you talk of a visa, an endorsement on one's passport by the host destination, giving a permission to be in that destination for a specific reason and a specific period of time. A visa, it gives you a permission that you must be in this country for this reason and for this specific time. So a visa will tell you that you are allowed to be here in South Africa. It may be shopping, and for how many days. After that, you are fugitive. health document, your health certificate that you will receive from the travel clinics or even the registered health practitioners. The international driver's license, a legal document that guarantees a person has passed the necessary tests to be able to drive a vehicle in a foreign destination. So, in order to obtain a international driver's license, you must have your domestic driver's license. So, because the international driver's license is a translation of rules from your home country. Okay, let us look where can you obtain this document. Your passport at the Department of Home Affairs, your visa, embassy of the host country, the health document, travel clinic or registered health practitioners, the international driver's license from the Automobile Association of South Africa. So we have different types of passports: child, temporary, official, crew. You name them. Also, with visa, there are different types: transit, working, medical, holiday, Schengen, multi-visa. So, as I've said, a visa, it gives you a permission to be in a specific destination for a specific reason. So, the reason may be medical, may be working, it will depend. So, with visa, we have your Schengen visa. So, there is a difference between a Schengen visa and a multi-visa. A Schengen visa is the name of a multi-visa. So, and also Schengen visa, it works in the European countries. A Schengen visa, it is a multi-visa because it allows a person to travel to travel more than one country in Europe. Okay, and looking at the last topic for the day is customs, or concept associated with traveling across borders. We all know that there are many control points and rules associated with traveling across borders of a country. These have been put in place to avoid criminal acts taking place during the course of travel. So, we are going to look at the important concept that one needs to know. But then, before that, one has to understand this. We have two sections. When entering the country, you have to go into two sections. There is immigration section and also there is customs section. The immigration section is controlled by the Department of Home Affairs. That is where they check your documentation before they can check what goods you are carrying. So if you have passed that one, then you will have to go to customs, which is controlled by the South African Revenue Services, which is SARS, where they will check the goods that you are carrying. So let us look at these concepts. Well, with customs, with customs section, you will come across these concepts: the duty-free goods or tax-free goods. These are items that may be brought into a country without a passenger having to pay extra taxes. These include duty-free goods such as wine and cigarettes bought on international flights. Then you have your prohibited. Passengers who are these are items that are not allowed to be brought into a country. They include drugs, weapon, plant, and animal material. Under no circumstances, if something is prohibited, you're not allowed. You have your green channel. That's a good one. This is for passengers who are within the customs regulation limits and who aren't carrying prohibited goods. They move through green channel at customs. So if you have nothing to declare, if whatever that you're carrying is within the limit, there is no need for you to go to a red channel, you go to green channel, and green channel, you move easier. Then you have a red channel. It's for passengers who are carrying goods that exceed customs limit or goods that may be prohibited. They need to move through the red channel at customs. Their items will be inspected and any duty payable will be charged. Red channel, you have things to declare. So you are carrying things that may be prohibited or they are above the required limit. Okay, what is to declare? What does to declare mean? If you are carrying something that you have doubt with, you should go to red channel to declare it. Then the customs will inspect it and make a ruling to tell you, no, you need to pay tax, or it is prohibited, or there's no need. It is important that you are truthful when going to green channel, because if you declare that you have nothing and then you are found that you have things that are prohibited or that are above the limit, that is a criminal offense. You may be arrested or you may be required to pay a fine. So it is important, if you're not sure, go to red channel, you go and declare that you have this, and then they will help you to understand if that thing is within the limit or you are allowed to bring that thing through. Then travel allowance. So this is the amount of good that a traveler is allowed to take into a country without having to pay a duty. So within custom regulations, tourists are not allowed to just enter or leave a country. As I've said, there are some custom regulations that they need to follow when they enter the country. Customs regulation will list the item that a tourist is allowed to have in their possession when entering or leaving the country. Or also, you must know that a custom duty may be imposed on items that are being imported or exported in the country. So as I've said, that custom, it is managed by South African Revenue Services, and immigration for paperwork or documentation, it is controlled by, or it is managed by the Department of Home Affairs. So this was the recap of what was done in term 1 under the section of Mapwork and tour planning. So it is very, very important that you answer what is asked. So it is important to understand that we have different tourists, and in order for a tourist to be happy, we need to cater to, for their needs. So a happy tourist is a paying tourist. So I would like to stop there for today, and good luck. Thank you.
Siyanibonga ngokufunda nathi. Siyanimema ukuthi nithamele futhi nakusasa. Ningazithola lezi zifundo ekhasini lethu lika Facebook elithi Go Digital SA Foundation, na ku YouTube elithi Go Digital SA Foundation. Ziyatholakala na ku Khozi FM njalo ngoLwesine kusukela ngo9 kuya ku10 ebusuku. Ningasithola nango WhatsApp kwinamba yethu ethi 068 151